Yo, what's good, relatives? Mike Bravo here, just touching base. Just want to uh, touch base about these information regarding the Los Angeles fires. Obviously, there's a lot of things people are talking about, a lot of misinformation, a lot of disinformation, a lot of propaganda, conspiracy theories. So my hopes with these videos I do, which I'm going to be doing for other topics as well. Um, if you think of the situation as like a hot live wire, like electricity wires, that's just kind of this that's just whipping around, with full of electricity. This offering is uh, an offering of grounding, right? You don't have to agree with every point that I make or whatever. I know there's a lot of people aren't really familiar with research or civic structure and responsibilities and things like that. So, as well as not really researching. So, I'm just hoping this information will ground people, like give them people a base level to make some more informed and better decisions and have a better understanding, right? There's so many things to get into, but for those who can't stick around for the whole video, I'm not too sure how long it's gonna be. I always think they're gonna be short, but they tend to be going longer than I usually expect. And also, too, this video is gonna be posted up on my Chief of the West Side YouTube channel. I also have my Six Ton Riders channel, which is more dedicated to my indigenous reclamation and education, work and information. And then the Chief of the West Side, I made that to host the topics of LA politics and just everything that's outside the purview of indigenous reclamation and education work. So just a note on that. Um, but so just a reminder, real quick, handful of reminders. Just be mindful of again. I always keep mentioning emotional or manipulation 101, right? And that is people always trying to get a emotional rise out of you, right? Generate a burst of sadness, a burst of frustration, a burst of anger, right? Or a burst of fear, right? So just be mindful of whenever you're watching videos or news, watch the films that are coming up, right? And if there's when the news is dedicated, the news are like they're ministers of fear and evil and vampiric things to suck up your energy, right? But when you're watching social media, TikTok or whatever, just be mindful. You're watching videos and watch the emotions that you're having. And as soon as you feel like some like extreme like anger or extreme fear or whatever or extreme sadness, pause, take a breath, and probably don't want to watch that. Um, and if you do, take notes. Now, I mean, again, do your research because it's most likely going to be it's efforts to manipulate you. And just a reminder, there's always opportunists in every dimension of life, every realm of life, right? And I'm just saying that because there's a lot of focus on looters and so and so, these little like weirdos, whatever, there's weirdos everywhere, right? And um, bottom feeder types, right? So just remember, there's opportunities at every turn, right? And I just want to focus on that because I think a lot of the talk about looters is being overhyped to justify the presence of the police, which a lot of the reason that the LAFD was defunded or got less money was to give to the LAPD, which already have an overinflated budget and crime is down even with lower numbers, right? So again, I'll go into more on that later, but again, just a quick note on that. Also, to be mindful of Los Angeles Fire Department, LAFD. They're heroes and doing critical work and these fires and all that, as well as all the incarcerated firefighters, and other firefighters coming from Canada, Mexico. I saw Navajo Nation firefighters coming through too. But the point I was going to make was that we want to support LAFD as much as possible in their capacity as firefighters, right? Because there's a lot of their lobbies and them collectively, I've noticed they support right wing agendas, right? I had some situations here in Venice during the last council election, and a lot of them support right wing racist candidates, and a lot of them are very Trump like supporters, right? Not saying all of them, but in bulk, collectively, I would say like that. Their politics are very right wing and racist. So I would say again, just support LAFD as much as we can and their capacity as firefighters, but be mindful of things they start to promote, politicians they start to promote, and some of their agendas, because again, they are trying to promote a right wing agenda, in their lobbies and unions and things like that. Too. Maybe I'll do this in depth thing on that, but just a quick note on that. Also, last but not least, I guess, read this book called The Doctrine. It's about it's basically it's under the premise that no tragedy goes unexploded, right? And a lot of times during extreme tragedies or that happen in society or disasters, that it's always used as a time to implement more draconian laws and policies that on the surface seem like they're righteous, but really they're used to advance oppression of the people, working class people, and all that to sustain the elite upper class, um, the upper echelon of people in power, right? So when you get a chance, check that book out. I forgot who the author is, but it's called The Shock Doctrine. So real quick, let's go on to talk about the water real quick, right? So um, a lot of people keep making the point about the San Ynez Reservoir, right? So what I've researched, and again too, like I've people have messaged me different things and had their different theories, and I'm always open to. I don't dismiss anything off the bat, even though I know a lot and I have a filter for things, but I always try to go and double check and do my research. So again, so a lot of people talk about the reservoir and the reservoir is empty, and again all this conspiracy theory, right? And so from what I learned is that 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 reservoir, and I guess most reservoirs, they tend to be empty for maintenance at least once a year, right? And that's usually in the winter for the most part, right? Because it's not considered fire season. But again, due to climate change, because climate change is real, right? Fire seasons and a lot of the things that are more associated with the so-called fire season, they're a lot more unpredictable and extended, right? Because of the droughts and everything like that. All right. So, and there's also, the fire hydrants were empty, right? So the fire hydrants didn't run dry because the reservoir was empty. But because of the demand on the system exceeded capacity, dropping the pressure. And I've heard just recently, the last couple, I've heard other fire departments talk about this too. Like when they use the fire hydrants, like it starts dropping the pressure around the area, right? So you imagine all these like fire hydrants, even if they were there was water there, but with all the mass use, which wasn't designed to, municipal fire hydrants weren't designed to be used in mass like that, right? So it quickly dropped the pressure. So there was water there, but um, they lost the pressure and weren't able to obviously use the hydrants, right? And then some people have said that if that San Ynez Reservoir was full, that that wouldn't have happened, which is also not true. Again, because of the pressure and the excessive use of the fire hydrants. There's also Trump and talking about the Delta smelt fish issue, saying, again, scapegoating Native Americans, disparaging our ways, which is racist. So people who keep saying he's not racist, that's another act of racism right there, perpetuating false stereotypes and putting onus, and who knows, people can take that out on a Native American or people who they think are Native American, right? So again, so that has nothing to do with the issue here. The Delta smelt fish is up north, right? But even if it was down here, going back to that circle teaching that I mentioned, if not, you can check it out in my social media bio. Everything matters, right? Everything's interconnected. Everything affects everything else, right? And even if even if some water was reserved to protect the fish, people don't realize how the smallest animal can its extinction could levy and cascade negative implications across the ecosystem, right? Just by a lack of one little something you think is small and insignificant. And again, too, it's this hierarchical mentality where humans think they're the center of life, right? That they're the center of the world revolves around them, right? No, we're just another relative in the circle, right? And also, this goes back to a lot of Western Christian thought too, where man is to subjugate the world and have dominion over the earth or whatever, which we're not. Again, we're all relatives, we're all equal, we all have a role in this world and in this universe, right? But again, too, you know, another reason why people need to get back, especially Chicanos, Mexicans, but anybody in general, but especially Mexicans and Spanish speaking native people, really need to get back to their roots and remember who they are and stop, getting washed by this Anglo American society, right? Remember your values, remember who we are. Next is the topic of the LAFT funding. So, again, too, like I mentioned earlier in the intro, um, a lot of that money, the 17 million or 18 million that was diverted from their funding was given to the LAPD, right? Again, to LAPD's been sucking up um, so much of the funding, right? Things that need to be going to like homeless services, social services, youth services, things that actually, mental health services, things that actually prevent crime, right? Job opportunities, etc., right? Instead, it's going to LAPD. Money, like again, I don't have extensive knowledge, but what I did find out about, there's a lot of services that the LAFD, the fire department, used to do that it's got outsourced or like with new technology and nonprofits. There's a lot of things that they used to do that have they don't do no more or do a lot less because of state and county partnerships. Covering a lot of the work they once did. But it doesn't take away their core ability to fight fires. But even saying that, they are, considering the population of Los Angeles, they are still understaffed and under resourced compared to other cities. So they definitely are understaffed and under resourced. So that needs to be noted. But also, sometimes when the money is diverted, it has been because, again, of other people covering the work that they once did, that there are no longer need for like ambulances and things like that. And also that even if that 17.5 million cut never happened, the fire was still so extraordinary and abnormal and extreme that like it wouldn't have really made much of a dent um in the response, right? They might have got there a little quicker and had like a little edge, or whatever too. Which again, every little bit matters for sure. Don't get me wrong, but um, as far as the collective outcome of the fire, it wouldn't have made much of a difference at all. So, again, just to ground everybody in facts and probability. And again, you could do your own research. If you don't believe me, you can go and do your own research as well. Um, and I guess just some notes about the fires in general too. Again, so again, no, climate change is real. And this is also, I think this is one of the products. It could be one of the products of everybody's talking about there's again right wing propaganda, racist propaganda, white supremacy propaganda is so prevalent, and I feel that there's very very again, I keep saying it, I feel there's a very very limited true left oriented media, which I really hate using the left and right dichotomy terms, but in terms of like left people who support true equality and power to the people and all that, are more likely or hold more of that dynamic anyway, right? There's a disparaging of anything dealing with that alludes to social justice or equality or equity or anti-racism, right? So one of those things, the word woke is a great example of this, right? Woke just means to be awake and aware, right? But of course, it's the propaganda has been so good that even activists have started to use it pejoratively. So I try to be mindful of not to use that pejoratively. But going back to like they want to act like climate change is a farce, which is not. And again, too, they try to cite the Democrat Party, and again, too, like I mentioned in the beginning, there's always a grifter, there's always an opportunist trying to take advantage of a tragedy, right, or of a disaster, right? Whether Democrat or Republican, it doesn't matter. Okay. Anyway, so just want to say that too. Climate changes are real, and a lot of the fire seasons are extending themselves, right? Like there's a certain time we think it's fire season, but really like due to just abnormal weather, which we can admit is very kind of erratic, more so these last 10 years. We need to really prepare and understand, climate change as it pertains to whatever area we're at. And in this case, obviously we're in LA County, so we have to be mindful of that. And I also mentioned how there's been a scapegoating and blaming Native Americans again for the fish or whatever. But the irony is that a lot of times you'll find whether it's gentrifiers, or just colonizers in general, like Trump and others, they love to project what they're doing, right? Just like Zionists, right? They love to project what they're actually doing, right? And so over there trying, blame Native American, like again, about the fish, which are actually up north, but like I said, even if they were here and involved in the situation, we're the people of the land, right? We have a working knowledge and direct history of how to take care of the land, right? And if Americans, if Anglos and other colonizers actually took heed of the knowledge and the advice of the Los Angeles native peoples about the lands that they're on, this wouldn't be happening. All this overdevelopment, moving close to the beach, on the coastlines, all this, all these Malibu landslides. These are all things that have been advised against by native people since the arrival of Anglos, right? So again, too, like study. I would encourage you to research native relationship with the land, understand the circle teaching, right, and understand native ways of caring for the land, right? Learn about native controlled fire burns, right? Things like that. You know what I mean? Like, again, we have to be creative and we have to be in good relationship with the territories that we're on and restore those relationships and adapt accordingly within a good relationship that doesn't burden or usurp or do damage to any other sector of the circle, right? Again, go back to that circle teaching I referred to. And as far as who is accountable, and this one thing is kind of bothering me too. Even though I can't stand Mayor Bass. I think she's a white supremacy police lobby shill, right? Zionist ass kisser. And a lot of people are calling for her resignation as well as Gavin Newsom. But there's a lot of, I keep telling people, you can still critique and call for accountability and justice without being racist and sexist, right? If she wasn't black and if she wasn't a woman, people would be talking about her a lot differently. People would still be critiquing her, whatever too. It'd be a whole different program. Right? She's the mayor of Los Angeles, but you have to remember there's 5 cities involved, so there's 5 different mayors involved, plus the county, plus different state and coastal jurisdictions, right? So she's not the only one. She can't move without them for the most part. She's only one mayor out of like 5 cities that are involved. Again, she only has so much jurisdiction, and again, not just by all means critique her, by all means, hold her feet to the fire. Again, too, but just be mindful of the agenda you might be fitting into. Right? Why aren't they calling for the resignation of other mayors? Right? Who are they even? I don't even know who the other mayors are. Right? Malibu, Pasadena. I don't know who these mayors are, but where's their accountability? Right? So something to keep in mind right there. Some more dynamics, again, going back to the infrastructure failures, right? Lack of investment in infrastructure, again, because really looking, check out LA City Controller Kenneth Mejia. Look how much money we get to the LAPD, man. There's like so many things down the line that really support public safety, right? That are being divested and defunded in favor of the LAPD. And again, the LAPD has never been defunded at all, period. People always talk like it has, but it hasn't. But again, too, that's money that can go to infrastructure, that can go to more creative and technologically advanced warning and sprinkler systems, fire prevention systems. There's so many. I mean, there's so many things that we get short on as a collective society, collective city and town. Even more so because, and I'll go into this later, is that how a lot of those areas, again, all respect to the people who lost their homes, but a lot of those areas, they already take a lot of the resources that are subsidized by the bulk of the working class people of Los Angeles. You know, what I mean, there's already so much money that gets funneled over there to take care of their situation, and it's still deficient, right? So just be mindful of that dynamic. I'll probably do something on that later too. Oh, and also as far as accountability goes, it really I think it goes back to self reflection. Have to be honest with ourselves too, right? Like people want to point fingers, right? And there's a lot of people who can, more directly be, held accountable, right? But again, there's multiple agencies involved. There's multiple political players involved, right? But also we have to look at ourselves too. How much we're not doing our research and how much we keep voting for people oriented in egregious capitalist interests, right? And again, too, like even if we were to recall Bass and Newsom, whatever, a lot of the inference of the media is that like, oh, okay, the inferred suggestion is okay, we need a Republican. And roughly, if I had to put it in the rough sense, it shouldn't be framed Democrat versus Republican, even though Democrats tend to house more authentically progressive dynamics and spaces, even though the bulk of them, I think, are mostly kind of poverty pimping a lot of these issues. There still is a contingent that holds space for, authentically progressive and righteous things, right? But again, that's, a very small amount in my opinion. But again, so we want to view things in terms of capitalist versus socialist, right? I know socialist has a bad ring, again, too, propaganda and everything, anything that alludes to equality or divesting from white hegemony, white centrism, Anglocentrism, right? Anything that is oriented in that way is going to be demonized, and propaganda is going to be created to deter you and make you dislike that, right? So, but really do your research. Right. Start reading up on things, the origins of capitalism, right? The origins of socialism, right? The pros, the cons, whatever. I said, just get your brain going on the situation and start thinking in terms of that. Mentioning our general lack of research and I guess the general apathy in of the populace, right? So while there's people we probably could technically hold accountable, really it goes back to culture, capitalist culture, Western American culture, right? And again, you can go to my my link in my bio, look at the circle teaching and watch that, and that that's a good teaching as far as understanding what I'm talking about. It's basically a battle of circular versus linear ways, right? Circular being a more holistic, indigenous, interconnectedness understanding of of everything around us, society, life, Earth, all that, right? Versus the more Western Anglo orientation of individualism, hierarchy, right, non-cooperation, etc. And yeah, I'm just watching. That's kind of what we're dealing with here. Not kind of, that is what we're dealing with here, on a larger collective sense. So it's a cultural. There's cultural blame too, and we're all part of that culture if we're not trying to do better in terms of our research and really do our research and our history with ourselves. When we find it and do research, even if you're white and if you're black, whatever, you'll see that in our original traditions, some of us have to go further than others. But in our original traditions, there was not this, hierarchical, individualistic bullshit that, is propped up as, the great American way of life and shit like that. So, again, the more you truly know about yourself and your history and your people, the more you're going to get back to the true solutions, the grounded solutions, and the better way of life. Oh, and I just want to say, fuck the new DA, Nathan Hochman, and his little crony, Tracy Park, CD11, mass incarceration agents, Zionist lobby, police lobby, and most likely, sorry, LAFD are heroes too, but, they push a lot of right-wing shit, so it's on them too. Nathan Hochman, the new DA, he put out this press release today, announces charges in Pacific Palisades and Altadena looting and Azusa arson, right? Again, this is to me more opportunist than anything. Showboating, right? In it, he says, "Let me be clear. If you exploit this tragedy to prey on victims of these deadly fires, we will find you and we will prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law." Ooh, so dramatic and very, again, very theatric, But of course, he's not talking about the law and protecting people. He's talking about specific laws to be selectively enforced on certain people, right? Like I said, these poverty related crimes, right? That's just not righteous, know what I mean? But point being, he's talking about particular crimes by particular people that fits his narrative is going to fit his storyline, right? He's not talking about the landlords probably raising rents, hotel owners, other businesses, right? Who are going to be price gouging and taking advantage and preying on this new tragedy, right? He's not talking about them. He's directing his uh, he's directing his big the big sheriff in town type of talk towards people at the bottom committing poverty crimes, not the people at the top being more harmful in the long run. Nothing about systemic issues, nothing about uh, business and landlord greed, right? Because these are people who fund them. So just a quick fuck you to them, and yeah, stay on your toes. All right, I think that's all I have to offer for today. But thanks for hanging out, and yeah, if there's any other items or things that come up that are questionable or whatever, 'cause I know people be sending me all kinds of videos and asking my opinion on things. If there's anything you want me to check out or clarify or get my take on, by all means hit me up and my go DM me or whatever here or YouTube or Instagram or whatever. All right, peace.